And here's an actual screenshot of this individual's bank statements and the sum that has been deposited. Today, I'm going to share a story about how this individual, using several techniques which were coined, you could say, by Neville Goddard, manifested a sum of $250,000 in approximately 90 days. Let's waste no time. Let's jump straight into the video. This is exactly how I did it, using wealth affirmations in that 90-day context, and how you can too, even if you don't believe in the law yet. Long but gold. Strap yourselves in, ladies and gentlemen. The creative process begins with an idea, and its cycle runs its course as a feeling and ends in a volition to act. And that is from the man himself, Neville Goddard. You can see towards the top of the video, Saintly Goddard. Now, it is prefaced by a difference or a delineation between one who acts in consciousness or unconsciousness. And I thought it was quite interesting how immediately there is this distinction that consciousness or creation, belongs to those who are conscious of it. And throughout my research in many different fields of, you call it manifestation, law of attraction, law of magnetism, reality creation, transurfing it, it always begins by inhabiting that mind of a creator and starting to disassociate from NPCs, one could say. To be honest, I was one of those extremely unsuccessful people. I had never succeeded in anything, and I had just dropped out of college for a second time at the age of 21. I knew I had a huge problem at hand, and it all started with my mind and how it was conditioned when I was young. Programming, one could say, and part and parcel of really leveraging this law is filtering out that program. It is being conscious of what you believe and where you got that belief from. And many people who believe in fate, who believe in, it's my destiny to live a mediocre lifestyle, typically had influences from a very young age from individuals who similarly believed that way. Are your parents, are your friends, are your close family members the individuals that are poisoning your mind? I'd remember I'd wake up in the morning and the very first things I'd think of were how much of a failure I was, how I dropped out of school with no plan. I had a terrible work ethic and no set of high-paying skills. I wasn't even driven to succeed. When I looked at my past, there was nothing I could refer to that suggested I am successful in any way. This was my daily habit. Can you imagine that cycle? Maybe some of you are living in that cycle, waking up and in complete lethargy of the existence that they currently live. Unbeknownst to them, they're sitting on a pot of gold. Makes me think of the first chapter in The Power of Now, where a beggar is on the street and, as beggars do, asking people for money. Can you give me money? Can you give me money to eat? And one stranger turns to him and says, you're sitting on a chest. Have you looked inside it? And the beggar stands up, turns around, opens the chest up and realizes he's sitting on gold. In a similar way, you are sitting on gold, and we'll allude to it here. I entered a state of anxiety, depression, and bombardment with the sensation of helplessness. And to top all this off, I had lived with a stepdad who was a narcissist with OCD and anger issues. In short, I hated my life and I felt trapped in my own mind as well as in my parents' house. I didn't know who to ask for help. I had no money, no support, no solutions whatsoever. My health was also very poor. So I spent most of my days in physical pain in the fetal position due to my paralyzed nervous system from depression. I had a real challenge in life, and a college degree wasn't going to be of much help. Institution in general doesn't really want you to win. It wants you to be an employee, unfortunately. The only light I had in the darkness that I could truly rely on was my meditation practice and my keen interest in metaphysical studies. I knew how to meditate and had a constant practice, but I had never tried to use this inner power to solve my external problems. They say the first and last 5 minutes of the day are the most important because that is when your mind is hypnotized by ideas, feelings, and images. That is correct. You enter a brainwave called theta. And this is the brainwave that hypnotists try to get their subjects in because they become very, very suggestible. Neville Goddard has been on record many times saying something along the lines of, that which you go to sleep feeling and thinking about is what the subconscious mind will be impressed upon. That is the seed that you are sowing in fertile soil. Doesn't matter if the seed is a bad seed, if it's a weed, or if it's a rose. Whatever you put in there, it will grow because the subconscious mind is fertile soil for that thought. That is essentially where your life is created by you, and if you don't control it, the circumstances of the world will control it for you. So every morning I bathe my mind in these unwanted ideas unconsciously, and my life pictured these ideas back to me with mathematical precision. I recognized this was the root of all my problems. My mind created my attitude, and that created my life. Everything from my financial brokenness, depression, and physical chronic pains were coded by the gray. And I woke up in it every single day, completely immersed and bathed in it, which blinded me to any other possibility. It's like you got tunnel vision and you cannot see or think or feel or imagine outside that narrow bandwidth of attention. Now, this cycle repeated itself all my life until one day I came across a book called Scientific Healing, Affirmations, written in 1922 by Grandmaster Yogi known as Paramahansa Yogananda. I actually haven't read this book. I think I will add it to my Amazon basket. This was the very first book I read on the idea of law of attraction. I had read the term before, but I had never studied it and definitely never had any intention to put it into practice. Now, I had a calling. I had to try this out. I had nothing to lose. The book was brief, but very authoritative, with clear instructions on how to apply this system to change your consciousness. He said the only way to change and mold your life is to change your consciousness. That's the only way. He says man's ignorance of this law has robbed humanity of its God-given power, which is the power of a mind to create prosperity, health, and miracles. In that way, are you not cut from the same cloth as the divine? If God is omnipresent, if you believe in God, and the idea of God is omnipresent and all-powerful, all-present God, does he not permeate your very flesh? Does he not permeate your mind and your nervous system? If the omnipresence of the divine God is within us, do we not imbue in some indirect way the powers of his creative ability? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. Creation begins with consciousness and it begins with intention. Intention, you cast a magic spell. With intention, you cast a magic spell. And that magic spell, the power of it, the potency is dependent on how you magnetize it with the faith of your feeling. When you pray, pray from the position, from the perspective that it is done. And then watch reality reorganize itself to that wish fulfilled. He refers to the mind as the magic factory. You can work in this factory to produce magical outcomes that are seeming miracles, but actually they're just thought vibrations getting condensed or frozen into matter. You collapse it into matter, but they appear as miraculous circumstance, which I think is awesome. I did not know the tiniest book in the world was about to change my life forever. I immediately put the exercises into action after reading it. This is a core difference that many people will not do. They will watch this video. They will mentally masturbate over this video. They will entertain the idea, oh, how pleasurable, how wonderful, how hopeful. But do I have the energy? Do I have the execution to do said thing? The answer is rarely no. And these individuals are the individuals who lack consciousness. He mentioned and delineated at the start, this is really a war between being conscious and being unconscious. And the NPCs, they have sealed their hearts. Allah has sealed their hearts. And that comes from one of the surahs in the Quran. Every morning, immediately upon waking, I'd read over the affirmations for material success. And every night, right before going to sleep, I'd read the affirmations again as instructed. The book said to sit upright and then practice the affirmations. I didn't do that. I laid on my bed in the same position as I would for sleep, read the affirmations a few times, and then fell asleep. I read them out loud, then softly, and then only repeated them mentally without moving my lips. Initially, I was very bad about this and lazy about it, still hugely skeptical. I can imagine, with no sense of faith nor trust in the process, filled with doubts, I persevered. As time went by, I got better at doing the exercises. I paid more attention. I affirmed with greater conviction, and I had little more faith every single time. Then I read the book once again and fine-tuned my developing skills to the instructions. I began to focus on the point between the eyebrows, the third eye, the all-seeing eye. When you close both eyes, only then do you see. The author says this is the point for concentration and willpower and for foresight. I noticed as I focused there calmly, it amplified, making my mental powers, leading me to have greater concentration with greater feeling of faith. Now, what I'm going to say here might sound outlandish. It might sound silly. But I have had many experiences. This probably started happening to me in 2019, was probably when I started meditating, or the end of 18, I would say, with more conviction. The deeper and deeper I got into my practice, when I bring my attention to this area, I get a physical sensation of pressure. And that is an activation of the ganglions in this particular center around the pituitary, pardon me. The pituitary, I might be confusing the two glands here, but the pituitary is the third eye, the pineal is the seventh chakra. This has tangible effects on your being. I have no reason to lie to you. This is a physical phenomenon that will happen to you when you focus in this area. It is not nebulous. It is not ineffable. It is grounded here in physical reality. And when you get this feeling, by the way, your conviction increases, but you must have faith first. You must have trust. You must trust in this process. You have nothing to lose. The author mentions that knowing how to use the mind to produce miracles is a skill that can be acquired. So many people try to change their minds, but they are unsuccessful in causing a change in their world, and they go to believe that their thoughts have no power, but it's their minds that are weak and their attention is scattered. We are training ourselves in this modern day era to be distracted. There is no skill. There is a skill to be. It's a skill to be focused, and it takes a muscle. It takes strength in this muscle to be focused. In the same way, a weak muscle can train, get stronger, and visibly grow bigger after exercises. The mind can grow more powerful through training. And if you read any literature regarding Tibetist monks, when they go in for scans by Western scientists, CAT scans, I believe they're called, the gray matter in the prefrontal cortex is significantly denser to Western man and Western woman. Why? Hypertrophy. Hypertrophy is development of tissue in this area. The strength and density of the neurons in this area compound and become more potent. But because you can't see it, that's where people lack the conviction, because it doesn't look sexy to have a dense prefrontal cortex. But I believe you, it changes your life. Often the things that people can't see, they change your life. Soon I began to notice that a battle had begun within my mind between old patterns of failure of consciousness and these new ideas of absolute success, wealth, and joy. And I was saying the affirmations with convictions, thoughts of doubt and poverty would suddenly creep out of nowhere. I'd noticed them and increase the amplitude of my attention on the ideas of success. Then thoughts of failure would cease, and I'd continue the stream of attention and success consciousness produced by the affirmations. Over time, this created a lot of joy in my heart and made me feel like I was going to win this battle over failure consciousness. Vasodilation happens in the heart, the aorta, the vena cava, they become wider and more blood rushes into the heart. Your heart opens, not spiritually, not just spiritually, physically. It physically opens. Slowly at first, but steadily, and later faster, my mental attitude began to completely change. I had started to think of ways to start a business of my own. I'd search the internet for hours on end and implement the ideas that I could. I had changed my daily routine and would go to the library, take my lunch, and research various business models that I could start with little money. As I was searching, I had so much conviction that something, somehow, would come of these actions. You can instill any trend in your consciousness right now, provided you inject a strong thought in your mind, and then your actions and your whole being will obey that thought. Neville Goddard. A few unusual things began to happen. A yoga student of mine after a class asked me if I'd go to her house and give her spiritual counseling. Something like this had never happened to me before. She ended up compensating me for my time, even though I had told her she didn't have to. Another event that my mother brought various Persian turquoises from Iran. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. My Iranian brothers can perhaps help me here. They were sent by her high school friend who was in the business of mining Persian turquoise. Their main customer was China, but they wanted to work with the US due to sanctions. It was difficult. She said, if I can find a buyer, we go into business. If not, we can keep the stones. I kept the stones as gifts, but later found out that the Persian turquoise is the highest valued and most sought after turquoise in the world. And also known as the most beautiful stone, the sanctions have actually caused their value to rise. I found that 5 of those stones were worth around $500 to $900, and there's a total of 40 cheaper stones which continue to rise in value every year. The affirmation included sentences like, all the wealth of the earth, all the riches of the universe belongs to me, belongs to me. I found it outstanding that the wealth of the earth, which are the Persian turquoises, were sent to me directly from the country of my birth, Iran, which happens to be the most valuable turquoise in the entire world. If this doesn't resemble the exact words from the affirmation, I don't know what does. Both these events resembled a natural possession of wealth, which was the object of my newly found affirmation practice. Now I was in the flow. I began to love practicing my success affirmations every night and morning, and then getting up and taking action that resembled success to me intuitively. I had taken responsibility of my life and felt confident. Doubt would show up at times when I would look in the bank account and the conditions of my life, but I kept going. I knew something was right around the corner. This is faith. This is faith. I kept experimenting with 2 to 3 businesses, implementing everything I had learned to the best of my ability. I just wanted to learn. I didn't care about failing. I had started a Shopify store, an Etsy store still. I hadn't made any progress when it came to money, but somehow I didn't care. I just had this attitude of trying until it worked. I fell in love with the process of research, implementing what I had learned, the struggles and the problem solving I had to do. This is what is said in the Bhagavad Gita to God, to us. It says, you have no rights to the fruits of the work, you have only right to the labor. Fall in love with the process. That is the gift. That is how to reduce your karma. That is your dharma. It's your duty. It is not the reward. Your duty, your love is found in the process, in the present moment of the process. By this time, I still had $400 in my bank account, but my attitude had completely changed. I now had the attitude of a winner instead of a loser. All the while, in the back of my mind, I knew I only needed one product that was an absolute winner, that one viral product. Once I found it would change everything. Intuitively, I kept looking for that product to show up. I knew a golden product was right around the corner. I continued on with my morning and night affirmations. By this time, I had far less resistance to this idea of success and wealth. Every time I read it, it felt like I was smoothly flowing from the stream of consciousness that was being conveyed within the affirmations. I felt calm, centered, and absolutely certain that these words were true. Some days I'd wake up, and the first thought that entered my mind was, my success is inevitable. I don't know how I will succeed, but I will do so. Such a drastic change from how he was holding himself in the past, waking up in apathy, waking up in depression and lethargy. He's completely deleted that programming and rewritten a better one. I had absolutely no resistance to the idea of being wealthy. I was right there. In his mind, he was already wealthy. It's belief that had taken over my body and mind. I felt like I had merged with the consciousness of the affirmation, which was wealth and success. In that state, I fell asleep. That night I had a dream I was running a business. I was so busy. I had on a full-on legitimate operation going on with employees and customers. I was so busy and had so much to do. Once I woke from that dream, the first thought that came to mind was, I'm going to make $200,000 again. I didn't come up with this number. It was just there. I woke up in it. It was coming from my subconscious. I had nothing to do with generating it. It was clear, authoritative intuition. Within a few seconds of waking, once my conscious mind began to awake, I thought to myself, how dare you think of these numbers? Where did you even get this from? This was doubt again. Yogananda says, the stronger magnet wins. By this time, I had made the magnet of success much stronger than my failure. Within 1 week of this dream, I found the one winning product. It was March of 2020. I was at a friend's house. Somehow I was so relaxed and I was sitting there with this feeling of certainty that I'm going to be rich. Still no signs of riches to be found in my pockets, but I knew in my heart. Even a friend of mine who's rich said, I have a feeling. I have this feeling. I was surfing on Etsy, as I had gotten into the habit of doing. I had come up with a way to quickly find the highest search items on Etsy on my own without having to pay for a software service. I saw that the term face mask is one of the most searched terms on Etsy. I thought to myself, why the heck are people searching for face masks? I see where this is going. I asked my mother to sew some face masks for me and I posted them on Etsy that day. The next day I woke up with a few sales. I posted my first face mask on March 18. The first week I have a revenue of $14,000. And by April 14, Etsy had deposited $200,000 into my personal bank account. This was within 25 days of starting the business. By the end of the business, which was less than a year, the business had a revenue of $850,000 with $250,000 in profits after I paid all people handsomely, because I remember Yogananda says to become rich and make others rich. Through the change in my consciousness, I found myself doing things differently. Those actions put me in the right place at the right time, which was the goal that I needed. I had created massive luck by changing my thoughts. People around me were jealous and some of them thought I'm a genius for having spotted the opportunity so on time, but I knew for 3 months prior, every single day, every single night, I had been cooking up a magic spell in my mind. This experience taught me so much about life and existence more than anything that I ever anticipated. I used to have a lot of resistance to the work, but now I felt like my work has set me free. I had all this money coming in. I had so many thousands of happy customers. I had articles written about my face masks all over BuzzFeed and the internet. I had 20 employees that were happy with their income amidst COVID when everybody was panicking about money. Seeing tens of thousands of good reviews saying this is the best face mask they've ever tried and how the print is beautiful. Seeing hundreds of pictures of people wearing my masks I had designed online. It was beautiful. It was glorious to see my mind had produced prosperity being shipped all over America. To be honest, it was a spiritual experience in and of itself. I did make a mistake amidst the whole process, which I must share. I stopped practicing my affirmations after making that money. Over time, my mind slowly went back to its older conditioning. Depression crept up after a year, and I never earned that money again. I believe I had maintained that consciousness that got me to that sudden and miraculous success. I would have succeeded in further miraculous ways. I started the practice up again a month ago, this time focusing on health affirmations because of a back pain from an injury that I wish to heal. I don't care how long it will take, it's better than doing nothing about it. So now I do these affirmations and then do wealth affirmations because I want to see what happens and where this creative process will take me next. So if you start the practice, gentlemen, don't just stop. Don't just go to the gym for 3 months. You go for the rest of your life. Otherwise, the progress stops. Thank you for reading. And here's an actual screenshot of this individual's bank statements and the sum that has been deposited, withdrawals, checks. A pretty amazing story. I really want to double down on the last point that he's saying there. You know, the work never stops. The joy of being present in the gym when you're working out never stops. Enjoy it. And in the same way, when you train your mind to think beautiful, positive thoughts and entertain the reality of wealth and abundance, we should never stop doing these things, for the devil will seek to drag us back into hell. These are not theories, these are facts. Speak soon.